Hey, welcome everybody. I'm Steve Goodner. I'm here today with Yvette Bethel. We're back. The dream team is back. Um, and I, Yvette and I have so much in common, but we also do a lot of things that are different. We bring complementary strengths to our consulting and our coaching and our work with organizations, leaders, professionals. Today, I really wanted to focus on one primary thing, and that's upgrading your inner operating system.
Mhm.
And I know people look at me and go, wait a minute, what does that mean? Well, do you ever feel like you've got 15 tabs open and none of them are loading correctly? We're having a little technical issue with Yvette this morning, and we're seeing a little bit of that there. But think about up here. Do you ever feel like you've got so much going on that things just aren't working right? They're not aligning right. They're not loading correctly. The joke that I use with people at times when I struggle around something is just not enough RAM. When you get to my age, the RAM gets filled up, and what do you do, right? Um, well, all of us run on an internal operating system, and that's our mindset. If it's overloaded or outdated, everything else breaks down. Our focus, our energy, how we even lead with others, how we connect to others, all of that depends on how effective our mindset is, which is what we're going to focus on today. We're going to learn how to shift from mental overload to mindset mastery. And it's a journey and it's a process. And that's a big part of what we want to share with you today. The main thing I hope you get out of this is what are some steps you can take to upgrade the way you think, the way you feel, and just the way you show up in life. So, for those of you who know me, I don't need to introduce myself, but for those of you who may not, let me share who I am a little bit. Then I'm going to ask Yvette to do the same thing. I've been in coaching and consulting for ever. And, decades of work in emotional intelligence, in psychology, in organizational development. And there's a faith aspect to what I do as well. And I share that. I've written a couple of books recently. You can find them on Amazon. I'll share one of those with you at the end of things today, just in case you're interested. But bottom line, I just want you to get a sense of we're coming from a place of knowledge and experience of what works and what doesn't. And so we're going to share with you just some secrets, some call them life hacks as far as mindset goes. Let's all think about upgrading our internal operating system. So, bottom line, Yvette, just quick quick introduction on what you do, who you are, that kind of thing.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much. And please let me know because my internet is, if I'm popping in and out. I'm Yvette Bethel, and I work with, I specialize in trust and human ecosystems, emotional intelligence, and HR, and some other things. What else would you like me to say, Steve?
I think what we're going to do is find out more about the work as
I work along with Steve. We met,
that's
and
right.
through 6 seconds, and I do a lot of training internationally, and I also compete with thought leadership in thought leadership circles internationally in the areas of trust and human ecosystems, aka organizations. So that's a little bit about me.
Good, good. Yeah, and Yvette is an author as well. She's got a wonderful book called Interconnectivity, Flow, and Balance. Um, it's light reading, so you it's a wonderful look at living systems within organizations, which I joke it's light reading. It took me a little
No,
while to
it's
get
not.
through it. um, it is great for insomnia, but 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 there's a lot of value in what Yvette has written and what she brings with her, which is why I love having her on today. And I know the quality of the connection today isn't all that great. She's got some construction going on. You may hear hammers and drills. That is not her working on people's mindset with hammers and drills today. They're working in her office today. So, hey, we're just going to get through that. We're real people just like you, working through different things in our life, the different challenges. Let's start in with this concept. And where I always like to start is, what's the pain point? What's the challenge? And that really is mental overload. And honestly, as a matter of fact, I put this on a LinkedIn post today. I was responding to somebody because the question was, how do I deal with all the noise coming at me every day? All of the input and the noise and the emails. Most of my clients get an average of 100 to 300 emails a day. And so how do you deal with all of that? And what I said in that post was, the input that we get in one day is about the same as our grandparents got in an entire year. And our brains have not evolved in 2 generations to handle a year's worth of input in 24 hours, actually less than 24 hours. And so this mindset thing is very important because it includes a lot of different elements. Some of those are barriers that we need to put up, boundaries. Some of those are, how do we block our time? And all of that is a part of building a successful mindset. Um, so this emotional, mental overload that we all experience at times is something that drains your most precious resources. It takes away from your time, your energy, your focus, and your effort. Those are the 4 things. I have to get this on the screen where people can see my fingers here. Those are the 4 things that you totally control: time, focus, energy, and effort. Now, I know you say, okay, my boss says I have to have this done by tomorrow, but you still have a choice, right? You can choose not to do it. Those 4 things you control, but mental overload will reduce every single one of those, and it will fracture your focus, it will drain your energy, and it will suck your time. And that's the challenge. Yvette, you've dealt with many different situations where people are in that mental overload place, where they're struggling with mental overload, and they're trying to figure out, how do I get out of this pit? So do you have any thoughts for us around how you've helped people get out of that mental overload?
Well, what I find is the mental overload has a companion with emotional overload and other companions. But certainly, in that state, because there's an emotional component, people will sense you. They will sense it because we're neurobiologically connected, and sometimes they'll sense that maybe they're causing it. They may feel that they're the cause because they don't know any of that. They just sense that something isn't quite right with you. So it could cause other people to start to feel certain ways that could create overload for them because they may think it's something is directed at them. It isn't. So there's that whole viral concept and heart set in the emotional landscape and creating
Yeah.
dissonance.
I love that because one thing that you and I know from experience, from learning, from the work that we do, emotions are contagious. And an emotional environment, the way that you show up, especially if you're a leader, and we're in some ways we're all leaders because leaders are about influence. It isn't about authority, it's about influence. And the way that we show up to influence others has a huge impact. So if our emotional environment, a part of our mindset, if our emotional environment is not conducive to good interaction and productivity and collaboration and all of that, then it's going to probably be negative. It's probably going to be non productive. And I love, Yvette, what you just said there, because the reality of this is that, and I use this little metaphor all the time. If you're on an airplane and the oxygen mask drops down, what are you supposed to do? You put it on yourself first so you can then help other people. And that is what we need to do in our lives. We need to be our best selves so that we can best serve, lead, sell, produce whatever it is that we're doing. And that starts with our mindset. That's why mindset here is so important. Um, when we think about the way our mindset works, here's just a thought process about how our brains operate. We experience things emotionally first before it ever gets to the rational, logical part of our brain. So if our emotional intelligence is not helping us, if those skills are not developed or we're not using those skills very well, then we may get stuck, get hijacked, and basically not be anywhere near as effective or productive as we want to be. And that's a big
Mhm.
challenge. Um,
You know, you said something about leaders being about influence, and that's in the environment. I think in more about control, and that has certain implications. The mindset that really cultivates is one of I want to do this, and they're not letting me, or I feel like I'm being underutilized. That's a word I hear quite a lot. And so the mindset things like, we want you to work as a team, and we're gonna do this together, and success together is everything, and la da 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 da. People are like grumbling, like, I'm overwhelmed, I'm this, I'm that. They're pressuring me, and we have to bring the with the core values and make sure there's an alignment, because in some cases people are so this in so deeply that it looks like they're okay, and they're not. They're actually just showing up and giving off that energy so that they don't come under scrutiny for any reason, but
right.
underneath it all, that's exhausting you know
Yeah,
Go ahead, go
absolutely.
ahead.
No, and I love that because that's why Gallup says in their most recent global workplace study that there's only 31% engagement. That's basically 3 out of 10 employees are engaged in the workplace. And it's because of a
Mhm.
lot of what we're talking about here. That's in the United States. Globally, it's worse than that. It's in the 20% range. And
That's right.
so or 2.5 employees out of 10, that's a horrible place to be. Engagement is the emotional commitment that somebody has to the work, to the team, to the effort. And if you've only got 2 or 3 people out of 10 that are fully engaged, you're not going to get that little extra effort that may make the difference. And that engagement level is so critical. And we know from research 70% of engagement is dependent directly on leadership. If you want to improve engagement in your organization, it starts with leadership. You improve the level of leadership. Um, and just so that you all know, we're not just coming up with this stuff on our own. I'm looking at data right in front of me from Gallup, from 6 Seconds, their state of the heart study, from many different research. I mean, you can look in Harvard Business Review, Forbes. You can see the same numbers we're talking about, where 70% of engagement is directly related to the quality of leadership, where engagement levels are at historic lows. And all of that directly impacts how we work, how we lead, how we sell, how we engage with other people. There's an important, now let's shift. Let's start talking about what can we do to move from this mental overload to mindset mastery. Because here's the reality. Just like in organizations who get the culture they tolerate, you get the mindset you tolerate. So you have a choice. You can shape your mindset to shape your future, or you can let it just happen. And that's a messy process that isn't going to really serve you at the best level. That
Yeah,
Go ahead, you bet.
I think you're right. You get the mindset that you tolerate, and uh, just to go into that a little bit more, one consideration, how organizations maybe condition people without their
Mm,
even permission, but because they're tolerant, they attend the training, and they because in some organizations they all say all the right stuff, but it's not aligned, and it's because there's been some conditioning that happened, but there, there was no real to turn the new language and the new lingo into and that has been transformed. So when you watch the interactions, it doesn't, there's a variance of some
yeah,
kind.
yes,
And
and
so
you've hit on
in this,
something. Sorry about that. You've hit on something very important here. If, and I'm just going to focus on a leader for just a minute. If a leader says one thing and does something else, we're working on leadership mindsets in the background here. If a leader says one thing and does something else, what happens is you're creating a lack of trust. You're creating a dissonance that people will not trust, therefore they will not engage. Would you agree with that?
yeah, trust is the heart of trust is integrity, and if there's no alignment uh, with the words and actions, absolutely trust in the person, in the team, and the organization. So it really, well, it cascades up, kind of an escalating
Yeah,
effect on trust, and it creates distrust over time if it's allowed to fester.
absolutely. Um, okay, now we're going to shift and say, okay, how can we shape our mindset to shape our future in a positive way? I've spent more than 4 decades working on this. Yvette has spent much less time because she's much younger than I am. But let me show you a model that I've created. I've worked with thousands of people over the years, and this is a model that works. And there are four primary components of shaping your mindset. I'm going to just go from left to right. There's not any importance of order here. So there's habit transformation, there's emotional intelligence, there's rational thinking, and there's skill development. All of those are a part of our mindset. However, none of those can be effective, or we can move the needle on those unless we have a growth mindset. Carol Dweck has done some seminal work on a growth mindset. And what is a growth mindset? Basically, the simple definition is, if you believe you can grow and change and get better, you will, because you make it a priority. It becomes a part of your mindset. And the term itself, growth mindset, is a precursor to shaping your mindset. So I've always heard it said leaders are learners. They learn, they like to learn, they like to know new information and all of that. So this is the model that I know works in shaping mindset. And I'm just going to walk through a few of these things. And I love the question at the top here. What would change in your life if your mindset was your greatest asset? So if you think about those four things that you totally control, time, the way you spend your time, focus, energy, and effort, all of that is built on the foundation of your mindset. And everything you experience comes through the filter of your mindset. And so mindset is absolutely critical to either limiting your success and satisfaction in life or increasing it. And this is where clarity, character, confidence, and competency converge. It's where they all come together. So let's walk through this briefly and just talk about each of these. And I want to start with emotional intelligence because I believe it is the most important place to start for two reasons. Number one, emotions are a part of everything in life, every decision, every action, every behavior. They are what I call emotional drivers. The more we have enhanced our emotional intelligence skills, the better we navigate the emotions of ourselves and other people. And so I see it as the foundation of building the mindset if you have committed to a growth mindset. Yvette, talk to us for just a minute about your thoughts around emotional intelligence in shaping and forming, intentionally shaping and forming a productive mindset.
You said something important earlier. You said a growth mindset is centered on confidence, clarity, and competence. And one of the areas that I zoom in on is confidence. And from a growth perspective, that is self trust, an emotion, and it's directed. And it's very necessary for even what you're talking about, for connecting with other people, trusting them, interacting with them, and trusting yourself to make decisions on it. So that confidence starts with that inner integrity. It's connect that is emotional intelligence, which includes a connective kind of part to the model that connects people outside of themselves as well. But with regard to the model of our model of we connect with ourselves first. You have to connect with yourself because sometimes you are ignoring yourself. And you got to be confident because in certain circumstances you won't know everything that's going on, you won't have all the facts, so you have to really trust your experience, your instincts, and other things that don't they're not always rational. So I think that goes along with the rational thinking. The two work together
Absolutely.
very well.
Absolutely. And what you're getting to here is what are the benefits? And this may be jumping ahead a little bit, but what are the benefits? What's in it for me if I create this mindset, this healthy, effective mindset? Well, agility, resilience, adaptive thinking, adaptive actions. You respond more than you react. Your social skills are going to be better. Your interactions and relationships are going to be better. I mean, it literally positively impacts every aspect of your life if you can create this mindset. And this is why I called it the operating system when we started this. Upgrade your inner operating system. Because we've all been somewhere where a computer had an old operating system and it just frustrates the heck out of us that it's not working right, it's slow, we're missing things. But this is creating that mindset, that operating system, that no matter what comes your way, this is going to help us be prepared to navigate whatever it is. I just did a blog article and a podcast episode on preparing for what comes next. You said something a minute ago, Yvette, that's so important. We cannot control the circumstances in our lives. We can't control the external factors, or at least most of them, that impact us on a daily basis. But we can prepare ourselves and our mindset to be agile, to be resilient, to be adaptive, to embrace change when it's appropriate, so that we can make the most out of whatever comes our direction.
You externalized kind of benefits of believing in yourself, but I think the an internal one is so that you can get up and go to work and be less
Mm.
anxious. You can feel more comfortable in your skin, uh, and you can feel connected. Because self trust, you tend to wall yourself off naturally. So it's if and why I should say is because if you wall yourself off, if you lack the confidence, it will impact your career. It will impact your opportunities for the future.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this is why I feel so passionate about this. And this is not anything you're going to find in any one area out there. That you're just not going to find this in a seminar. You're not going to find it in a workshop. This is a journey, and it's your personal journey. And each of these comes into context with your culture. It comes into context with what you believe to be true about yourself and your place in the world, your values, the things that are really important to you. That's why everybody's journey, while may have similarities, it's why everybody's journey is unique, because we're unique individuals. And so the framework is what we know works for people as they navigate and integrate into their life, into what makes sense for them, because everybody's working in their own unique place and with their own unique skills and giftedness and all of that. The rational thinking here, strategic thinking, numerical reasoning, logical reasoning, abstract thinking, problem solving, innovation. I mean, all of those higher level thinking skills, which are in the bubble of rational thinking, are only empowered if we have the emotional intelligence to navigate the emotions of ourselves and other people, so it doesn't take away from those higher thinking skills. We have all been in a place where something happened that triggered strong emotions in us and we couldn't think straight. And we will say things like, I can't think straight right now. I need some time to think about that. That's what's happening. The emotional triggers, the emotions that come out of the triggers that you're cycling in are keeping you from being able to access those higher cognitive functions. That's why those two have to work together. And it's exactly what you said, Yvette. When these two work together, we make our best decisions, we take our best actions, we show up the way we want to, we're more intentional more often for more strategic outcomes. Um,
You know, there's a I think in one culture they say the rational thinking is more of a static uh, kind of it has a static existence, and then the emotion is the energy behind it, the creativity behind it. So it needs both need to work together in order for them to move things along in a productive.
yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to talk for a minute on habit transformation. By the way, every one of these bubbles we have assessments for. We can actually create a data driven approach to growing every single one of these areas. I just want to make sure everybody understands that. Again, this is not Yvette and Steve saying this is what we think or this is our hypothesis. This is proven science. And we have assessments that will specifically measure these different critical areas in creating our mindset. Habit transformation is an interesting one. Until recently, there has not been an assessment that measured both productive and counterproductive habits on the same scale. We now have that. It's by a company called Two Story, and it's called the Habit Story Assessment. But even better, not only does it measure productive and counterproductive habits, it measures response patterns and it measures emotional state. It is probably one of the best assessments I've ever used. And it is one of the most impactful because habits, there's so much mystery around habits. We know, yeah, a lot of people know a few things like it takes about 90 days to create a new habit and you do it by practicing it and all of that. Well, now we know the science behind habit formation and habit transformation. And that's so important because research tells us 43% of our daily decisions and actions are done habitually. 43% of our daily decisions and actions are done without any thought. We don't think about them at all. We just do them that way. And that can be a huge roadblock or a huge accelerator in creating the right mindset. So we can't leave habit transformation out of that process. Yvette, I'm sure you've seen that in the work that you do, where people have created these habits that are not serving them well.
Yeah, into the emotional intelligence as you started. Because with habits, a lot of habits are linked to emotional patterns. And in emotional intelligence, there is a skill uh, called recognizing your patterns. So if you have a habit of doing certain things and it's linked to the way you feel, most of the time, the best way out of that is to become aware of your emotions and the associated patterns. So I think to the assessment that you mentioned earlier, the habit story assessment is critical in that process because it's intrinsically connected, directly connected to.
Yes. And the four domains for the different habits, counterproductive and productive habits, are emotional domains like hope and fear and care. Those are the cues. They are cued in And it kind of goes like this. There's an emotional cue that then our brain kind of predicts, okay, from what's happening right now and the emotions I'm having, this is kind of going to happen, or I think this, I'm predicting what's going to happen, and then I'm going to act on that for whatever outcome that I want. And then with my outcome, I decide, do I reinforce that habit or do I extinguish that habit? And so it is driven by emotions. And you've hit it right on the head, Yvette, that the emotional intelligence is, again, the foundation for building the right mindset. I want to move on to the skill development for a minute. I want to be very specific here. There isn't a static set of skills that are the right skills to develop for everybody. It depends on who you are, where you are, what you're doing, what your purpose is, and what your outcomes are that you want to achieve. So I'm talking very specific skill development, which is a part of creating the right mindset. Now, notice that creating productive habits, growing your emotional intelligence, rational thinking, those are all skills. And so skill development includes those, but it also may include other skills that you want to develop so that you have more confidence, you have more self-trust. Let's be honest about it. When we start something new, many times we don't have a lot of self-trust, and don't have a lot of confidence in this new thing we're trying to do. And it's why it's important that we develop that in ourselves in whatever this new area is. You may be moving from an individual contributor to a leadership role. And I'm on Reddit all the time, responding to people in the leadership subreddit about, hey, I'm moving from a team member to a leader, and is there a difference? Yeah, there's a difference. How do I do that effectively? Well, how much time do you have? And so that's why this skill development thing is a part of mindset. And really, if I were to encompass the growth mindset anywhere in these bubbles, it would be in skill development, because I think a growth mindset is the precursor for any skill that you want to develop. How much do you like growing and learning and trying new things? Any thoughts on this, Yvette?
When you said that, my mind took me to a friend of mine, and every time I suggest something different, he always starts with no.
Oh,
No, that's not gonna do this, and then he keeps talking, and then it becomes a yes.
right, right.
Somehow, somewhere in there, but the initial response is a no. That's not gonna work. And so, in his case, he gradually gets to a growth mindset, but without me having to say anything, because if I interject it, it'll never get
Yeah,
there. But certainly, growth mindsets, a lot of people don't even realize that they're doing things like that. They may intend, and if you talk to him, he's very bright and into, learning and all kinds of things, research. And certainly, he still says no
yeah,
first. And I don't know if that's the skepticism or what it is. And I don't know if it's healthy or not, but certainly the important point here is you need to get there, even though, recognize what you're doing as a
yeah,
habit, which we just talked
yes.
about. Recognize it, and then once you're in it and you feel like, oh, I kind of said no again. There's a book called My Year of Saying Yes by Shonda Rhimes. It was all about her opening her life up. Shonda Rhimes I guess, a well-known writer, a script writer, and a producer. How to Get Away with those kinds of things.
Huh,
And she wrote the book My Year of Saying Yes, And it was really about starting off with a yes. And she said that her whole life changed in that year. You know, she started spending more time with her kids, even if it, kind of, if saying yes was a big sacrifice, she said it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Changed her life.
I think that's great. And again, we apologize for the construction going on in the background, but that's just part of life, and you can all appreciate that. Um, Bottom line, I think that's so important what you just said, Yvette, because that's somebody who has created a habit of no. And the thing is, even counterproductive habits have at some point in our lives rewarded us. That's why they're there, but they don't always reward us. Procrastination does not always reward us. Blame fixing does not reward us. Blame shifting, uh, sabotage, deny, uh, all of those different counterproductive habits don't necessarily help us most of the time, although they got there somehow. And the reason they got there was because it helped us somehow in the past. So taking a step back, this is what I call the EQ fit mindset. EQ being emotional intelligence, or the measure of emotional intelligence, and fit just being fitness. I actually have a LinkedIn newsletter called EQ Fitness. Um, I think this focus today is so very important, because if we want to shape our future, if we want to have better outcomes, if we want to achieve our goals and our success, it starts with mindset. It starts with, it's not just going to be given to us. It's not just going to happen all on its own. That's the person that just figures, I'll buy a lottery ticket every week and eventually it'll happen. Yeah, well, it may take 3 or 4 thousand years for that to happen, but bottom line, this is an intentional approach to you shaping your future. That's what this comes down to. And it's also important, and I talk some, not as much on one of these LinkedIn lives, but on others I've talked about the faith side of my life. That's where I get joy. It's where I get enjoyment. It's where I can make a difference in other people's lives in a different way, and all of that. It's just as important to live an abundant and joyful life as it is to create this mindset I'm talking about. And guess what? There is a spiritual aspect to all of this. I didn't put a separate bubble for that, because frankly, for me, it touches everything. It's just infused in every part of this. But we don't want to overlook that, because that is at its very base level, that is where more of our well-being comes from. Is, are we aligned? And Yvette, you used a perfect word. When there is alignment, then, when our spirit and our emotions, our habits, our rational thinking, our skills, when all of those align, we enjoy life more. So,
That's absolutely right.
yeah. And honestly, at least for me, that's why I do what I do, because I know what the pathway looks like. I know what the tools are to create the right pathway for people. I don't want you to walk my pathway because it won't be right for you. But I can give you the tools. Yvette can give you the tools to find your pathway to get the most success and satisfaction out of life. Um, Yvette, as I kind of close this out today, I just want to share a couple of things. And for those of you that don't like listening to commercials, feel free to not listen. But I would be remiss if I didn't share with you, how do you get there? I just told you I can give you the tools. Yvette can too. We come from a little bit of a different direction, but the tools are very, very much the same. I'm starting a couple of things. This has been years in the making. I've beta tested it. I've worked with many organizations with this process, and what I've found is that in 12 weeks there can be real transformation. So I'm creating masterminds, what I call the EQ Fit masterminds, and I'm going to start 2 of them. I'm going to start one in leadership. I'm going to start one in sales. I'm actually starting 3. The third one is faith, for those who are believers and want to grow in their faith and their spiritual walk. These are the 2 I'm sharing today, though. The other is available as well. The EQ Fit Leadership Mastermind and the EQ Fit Sales Mastermind. I've spent my entire life in some form of sales. By the way, when you own your own business, you're always in sales, right, Yvette? Yeah, yeah. And so, um, and by the way, just as a sidelight, if you're interested, I have recently published this book. It's on Amazon right now, Unlocking Sales Success with Emotional Intelligence: The Science and Practice of Emotionally Intelligent Selling. It's on Amazon. If you're interested in looking into that, the masterminds, and I'm going to focus for just a minute on the leadership, because really, as a leader, let me share a quick story. My dad, the psychologist who had his own assessment company and did very much what I'm doing now, I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree or something like that. But he had a great way of explaining leadership to people. He had this chain. It was about 5 links long, and these are huge links, right? These really big links. Sorry, I can't really do that. I got to find that chain. I've got it around here somewhere. But it's about five lengths long, and he would get in a meeting with a bunch of leaders when he first started working with them, and he would lay this chain out, the links in a straight line, and he would invite somebody to push the chain in a straight line from one end of the table to the other end of the table. You can't do it, because the minute you start to push that back link, the other links go in different directions. You cannot push that in a straight line. But what he did then was he said, okay, he brought it back, he set it up again. He said, now somebody put your finger in the first link and pull it in a straight line to the other end of the table. You can do it every single time. That's leadership. It's not pushing, it's pulling. It's bringing people along with you. It's inviting them in. It's engaging them. It's pulling them, not pushing them, which goes back, Yvette, to what you said earlier about control. When you're in a healthy environment, great. You can have influence. But unfortunately, from the looks of the Gallup survey, most places are not healthy environments. So there's a lot of pushing going on. And every time you push, things are not going to go in the direction everything is not going to go in the direction you want. You may push this person to get something done, but what else is the cost? There's going to be other costs to that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Steve.
So
Control never
no,
works.
it doesn't. So let's go back and just leave it at this. If you are serious about creating the right mindset, about understanding what that looks like, and just having a conversation, it doesn't cost you anything, and there's no obligation to just have a conversation. And I just brought my email up there. If you want to email me directly, and if you want to get in touch with Yvette, I'll give you that information. I'm more than happy to share that, because we are like-minded individuals who care deeply about people and about helping people and equipping people. Somebody asked me the other day, if you could tell me your purpose in 2 words, Steve, what would it be? And I just said, equip people. That's my purpose. Why? That's not the why. That's the thing I do. That's the what. The why is because I know there's a better life out there for everybody if we're operating at our best. Yvette, any final thoughts?
I think with regard to your masterminds, I think it's a great opportunity, come in and really go to the next level for themselves and their team. So, hats off to you with creating them. And with the model, the EcoFit mindset, I think anything that transforms and help to create sustainable transformation, and that's really emotional, you know, thinking, emotional intelligence. I think it's worth the time to take a look at it. I take a deep look at it from the perspective of trust, but I also look at systems. So thank you for and uh, certainly. Uh,
I do too, Yvette. Thank you very much. And seriously, folks, whether you're live with us right now or whether you're seeing this later, this is an open invitation. If you just want to have a conversation, feel free to reach out to either of us, and we would be happy to have that
yeah.
conversation. Well, goodbye for now, and we'll